Hi, my name is Jay, and as you probably know by now, I have a webcomic in the works called Dying Rain, and I'm hoping to release it soon. I've started a series where I make concept art and redesign certain characters and aspects, and today is no different. Today, I'm really going deep into the lore about my characters and what my comic is even about, sort of a meet my character / what is Dying Rain video. While doing this, we are going to be redrawing something I sort of redraw every single year. In 2021, I made this awful illustration of Shoya, Liakai, and Aima. The proportions were bad, I think the coloring is boring, I just don't like it. Like, what is this? Like, actually, what is this? And last year I redrew it and it was so much better, but still missing something. They seem very stagnant and you really can barely tell where they are. I just know I can do better. Plus their designs are so different now, it'll be interesting to see what I can do. So I got started, and we'll get into what I changed a little later because this video is more about what to expect from my comic and me answering some questions you all had about it. Dying Rain, what is it really? I've made a handful of videos at this point focusing on the characters and their designs, but you guys are still in the dark about the story and even what the characters' relationships are to each other. Dying Rain is what I would describe as a coming-of-age story masked in fantasy adventure. It deals with heavy topics like loss, addiction, cycles of abuse, trauma, and the human condition. Scary things! I wanted to sort of like, you're in this fantasy world, all of these characters look very cutesy, they have powers, it's like this whole made-up thing, and they're just going through it. My story was developed when I was really young, and I used these characters as an outlet then and now for the most part, and now that I'm older, I have a better grasp on a story that I could make something I deem important with, something that could relay a message or my opinion and experiences on things with my own artistic fantasy spin. It's a very personal story to me, but I wanted to add a lot of aspects that I've seen with other people and just things around me. So that's really what you should expect, a coming-of-age story with dark themes and challenges that focuses on how experiences can make characters shift and change with time, because that's something I have first-hand experience with and something I'd personally like to talk about. We follow the main trio as their past dictate what decisions they make, and when a tragic event happens at the beginning of the story, it sends all of these characters into each other's lives and spirals from there, sending them on a quest of sorts. Somebody is making a lot of noise upstairs. Today I really want to get into parts of my story that I haven't revealed before, but really want to share. And you guys seem semi-interested, so I always just want to deliver. Dying Rain takes place in a world that's complete fantasy. There's no ties to real-life cities or countries or anything like that, any government buildups. I wanted to be able to let my brain sort of run wild. In the character redesign videos, I gave some info on the regions that my trio comes from, but in the story they all end up in the same place, a mountain town that I have dubbed Snowfall Point. I wasn't able to get into it really in those videos other than like vaguely, because there really was no purpose for it. But now there is. The name Snowfall Point is in a lot of my art as like random Easter eggs or merch my characters are wearing, like they bought it at some kind of gift shop, and it goes back years. Snowfall Point is where a lot of the story takes place, and I bring it up because it's actually the setting of what you're watching me draw right now. I'm drawing the trio in a gas station named Top Off, like you're topping off gas, you know? Walk with me, walk with me. This place goes back years. In old art, you could constantly see my characters with slushies in their hands, like it's just a thing. I think a rundown little gas station is a really good place to allude to the aura I wanted Snowfall Point to have. It's this creepy, mysterious little unknown mountain town completely away from the outside world. It's shielded by mountains and snow, and it's sort of a melting pot of people who live and grew up there. Weird people inhabit this place, alright? Characters like Roscoe, Marbles, and Oliver, those are Snowfall Point locals. Born and raised, even. There's lots of secret little nooks and crannies of this place, alleyways and odd locals that make it feel eerie and untrustworthy, and it has like a darker aesthetic to it. It's always a little gloomy. It's almost like a town that doesn't even exist, like the Lotus Casino. Like a time warp. I wanted it to feel surreal or dreamlike, and this is very purposeful because by the end of my story, I want the reader or viewer to question what's going on, or if they're being kept in the dark about something. Like, is any of this story real? Like, who's not telling the truth? What am I missing? The reason why? Well, I can't tell you. Read my comic when it comes out, twin. But I really wanted to push the fact that our main trio, Shoya, Liakai, and Aima, are complete fish out of water here. They all come from very specific cities and regions where it all made sense to them. Like, it's how they grew up, it's the only life they know. And once they reach Snowfall Point, to hopefully find an unknown character you all haven't met yet, it feels weird and unsettling to them. Like something's off, nothing really makes sense. I just wanted to push that unsettling narrative a lot, where the readers and the characters feel out of place. Let's talk comic and where to find it. I am still very far away from release, but I will still make world building and concept videos, of course. There's a lot I can say and do. and a lot of work to be done. And I will be releasing smaller short comics where you can all finally see the characters interact because it's something I haven't really done before. As for where you can find these, I want to shed some light on where I am the most active when it comes to my comic, tumblr.com. The official comic will eventually be on Webtoon or a personal website, but for now you can find anything out to the public about it on my Tumblr. I'll have navigation to any short form comics I release, and I also have a section on my blog where I answer any questions in my ask box about Dying Rain and its characters specifically, and where I post concept art and new ideas I'm working on, like an update extra content corner, and it's nestled in a little link on my Tumblr blog. Just wanted to point that out so you all know it exists. The link to my Tumblr will be in the description of this video. I tried to make it as easy to navigate as possible, probably a little bit easier if you're on a computer, but that's just how Tumblr's always been. Speaking of questions, comments, and concerns, I made a post on the community section of my channel as well as a story post on Instagram asking if you guys had any questions about the comic or my characters that I could answer in this video. I'm always asking questions and giving updates on there if you want to be in the loop, and I lurk on the YouTube post section and do polls for next videos and stuff, so kind of cool. I like being on there and I like chatting with you guys. So we will be going over some of those questions that you guys asked right now. What are your characters' relationships and relationship statuses? I got a few questions where people were very curious about what my characters' dynamics were with each other, especially wanting to know if any of them were like together. Like, hey, what the f do Lee Kai and Shoya have going on, by the way? Just curious. So let's get into some of the important character dynamics, starting with the trio themselves. I don't know if I made it apparent in the redesign videos, but my trio is very close. Like a found family together in death close. But it wasn't always like that. Starting with Liakai and Ima, they meet a little later in the story and they have this sort of I don't like you, but I'm putting up with you dynamic. They're frenemies. This mostly stems from differences in upbringings. Ima was very self-sufficient and she had to grow up in a poorer city and fend for herself, whereas Liakai, while still having his own stressors and issues, could be looked at as sheltered from somebody in Ima's perspective. He's from a highly regarded family in a small town where perfection is expected, and it affected both of their opinions on things and how they view the world. This made it more difficult for them to connect, but the longer the story goes on and the more they mature and develop, they grow closer and have a very familial bond. Siblings that bother the out of each other is what I would call Liakai and Ima. Is this the same for Shoya and Ima? Shoya met Ima at the same time Liakai did, but it wasn't the same dynamic for them. I've always considered Ima and Shoya close because they have a similar nihilistic, realistic mindset. Shoya can be very detached because of his feelings, and Ima can be very detached because she's logical, and it mixes well for them. This dynamic also changes. All of Shoya's relationships are hard to gauge and talk about because they all change through the story due to there's moments where he loses sight of himself, but that's just the character I wrote. Every single person in this story is flawed. Shoya is very narrow-minded. He is set out to do something and he loses himself along the way. He's aloof and closed off and just very volatile to things. Ima is overly detached. She's too logical about things. She has a hard time opening up and has an extremely hard time relying on other people or believing other people. Trust isn't easy for Ima to come by. And Liakai is very idealistic because of how he grew up, and he has this like fixed mindset at the beginning of the story, and he has to sort of grow out of that. Now, Shoya and Liakai. It's no secret that if you scroll down far enough, you will see very old, very dated ship art of these two since day one. And yes, they are a few of the only characters in my story with canonical romantic ties. It is kept very vague on purpose, and I will continue to leave it as such, but basically, you see Liakai and Shoya, that's actually a manic pixie dream boy and his victim. No, but seriously, they have very deep feelings for each other, and it's explored through my story. It's the thing that I think about the most, honestly, is their relationship because it changes so much. And when you have two characters where one is overly loyal and idealistic and attached and refuses to see the wrong in people, and another character who is so jaded and damaged and is constantly making the wrong choices for himself and others, it's like a tragic story, but they're roots are very deep. Liakai and Shoya met because Liakai worked at a post office and he had to go out of this way to deliver mail that nobody dared deliver because it was in this like rundown part of town that was super far away, and he meets Shoya, who was working on this farm at the time, and Shoya becomes a little bit of an escape for Liakai, and then that relationship changes when they have to leave where they're staying. The entire trio relies on each other greatly, and their different backgrounds lead to a lot of differences just like real life, and my story follows around 4 years of time plus a time skip at the end. So their relationships with each other change a lot, but yeah, those are like the basics of their dynamics. Some of you also wanted to know which way my characters swing, and honestly, I'm not the best at labeling my characters' sexualities. I kind of place them all on the arrow ace spectrum because I myself would label myself that way. But basically, I see Ima as arrow ace, Leakai and Shoya as some form of demi-romantic / demisexual, Roscoe as unlabeled on his own fruition, and Oliver as gay or too tired to care. Consider my characters queer if the situation calls for it. I don't care, and neither do they. I made them. How old are your characters? I sprinkled this in throughout the redesigning videos, but I'll say it again here. My story crosses around 4 years, so Shoya and Leakai are 15 when their story starts, and Ima is 16. The versions of my characters that you saw me design, that's later in the story when they're around 19 and 20. Shoya and Leakai meet when they're both 15, and they don't meet Ima until they're around 16 and 17. I've mulled over the idea of making a video where I draw them at different ages because I think it would be fun. I also posted their official character sheets on Instagram and Tumblr if you're interested. What kind of music would your characters listen to? I love this question. You guys don't know why yet, but I love this question. You might have picked up on it, but I love all things music and could talk about my favorite bands for hours. I have a decently sized CD collection, and if you stay for the end card of my videos, you can see it all in the back. I mean, it's literally my YouTube banner too. That's my radio. Those are my CDs. I also wanted to burn my viewers' favorite songs onto the CD you see in that photo because it's empty right now. So drop some below if you want your favorite song immortalized because I have a CD burner. I've always thought it would be cool. Anyways, what do these freaks listen to? I see Leakai as someone who would listen to country on occasion because of where he grew up, and he had a little bit of a rebellious phase growing up. I think he'd be into Green Day, Propaganda, and Styx, punky rock type of vibe. Shoya is an indie / alternative rock truther, unfortunately. Silver Sun Pickups, RKS, Death Cab for Cutie, with some Ethel Cain sprinkled in. Ima was fun to think about because I think she would listen to a lot of classical music when she was younger and more folk music as she got older. Think the Crane Wives, Mr. Wives, Tegan and Sarah, that vibe. I also have a very funny personal canon that Oliver really likes Baby Rexa, Raya, whatever. Alanis Morissette, Natalie Merchant, certified cigarette mother. How do you stay motivated to work on your comic? This was a question I had to really think about because there have been moments, literal years, where I wasn't motivated at all. I think for me personally, a big help is honestly you guys. Getting support and comments and interest on something I've been working on for years that's so close to my heart was very freeing for me, and I put more focus on it. I also tend to hyperfixate a lot, but on a more basic level, I find motivation to draw because I use it as a relaxer or something that can take my mind off things. You can find a lot of motivation to do something when it's a coping mechanism, I've learned, and the feeling of accomplishment I get when I try something new and like it, or learn new things, workshop different ideas, I really like that feeling. And sometimes I hate my art. Sometimes I throw away drawings and delete canvases due to art block or irritation. Motivation is a big struggle for everyone, myself included, even though I seem to draw a lot. But I think coming from somebody who does struggle with that or used to a lot in the past, I think my biggest advice would be to stop thinking and just do it. Stop overthinking what you're gonna draw and get it onto canvas first, then go from there. Change things, add things, scrap things, really indulge in the process because it is fun. I've also found trying new things every time I draw helped, whether it be a new brush on Clip Studio, new feature I'm adding to my character, new shading style. You can draw your characters in different aesthetics, wearing different things. Just have fun. Do fun things like that you want to do. Art becomes draining when you're not having fun and are just mindlessly putting pen to tablet or pen to paper. Make sure your brain is working at the same time your hand and your pen is. I don't know. I'm not always the best person to ask, but that's the advice I could conjure up. Those are all of the questions I had fleshed out answers for. If you have any more after this video, I will leave the link to my Tumblr and my Ask box where you can personally send questions to me and I can respond with a post down in the description, and it will all be in that little section of my blog about Dying Rain. Someone also asked why I named my comic that, and that's been the name forever. It's never changed and I will never change it. It'd be a lot to get into, but basically, vaguely, this isn't in the script. I'm going off rail here, okay? But I think when I think of Dying Rain, I think of kind of like a calm after the storm and sort of the fizzling out feeling that's in the air when a storm finally stops and the rain is dying down, Dying Rain. And my story is filled with turmoil and all of this stuff happening and a bunch of things going on, and I purposely wrote it that way, and by the end of the story everything settles, but it's sort of like a melancholy feeling, and I think that's the same vibe as a rainstorm that's dying out. So that's the inspiration there. Moving on to actual art commentary, since this is a redraw and I do have things to say about it, I want to point out a couple things you saw in the speed paint, specifically like the background, because my favorite part of drawing actual illustrations like this, where it's a whole scene and background, is adding like little Easter eggs and fun stuff while I'm drawing. I think it makes this really tedious process more fun when I can just add whatever I want. Sometimes I really have to have an out-of-body experience when I'm drawing where I'm like, wait, I can draw whatever I want. I can literally add anything. When I was drawing the background, you saw me add some silly stuff like posters and stickers and books and things. I want to talk about the posters first. I made a couple in Canva, and one is those like keep calm posters that you would see everywhere in early internet times. And it says keep calm and shop local, because I think Snowfall Point would be a town that really pushes local shops and vendors to sustain an economy. A small mountain town feel. And it gives the sense of only the people that know about Snowfall Point are inside of Snowfall Point, you know? The other poster is just mountains and the Snowfall Point logo, but the tagline for this town is greatest place on earth. And every time I draw it, I make it look like someone went in with a pen and crossed out the word greatest. I want to allude to the unsettling vibe Snowfall Point has going on. I also added other cool Easter eggs. S+L is carved into the little step stool thing for Shoya and Liakai. I always add these little rats that look like they're watching you. I added them in the Old Sorrow Diner speed paint as well. They're reoccurring characters to me personally. There was a Foxhole Court sneak when I was writing the names of all the books that are on that shelf. One of the posters has the name of the military school Liakai went to, Stonehold Military Academy. When I get more into world building, I'll go into more of the regions, but for now, you get a little sneak peek. And the live show poster, the date on it is my birthday, June 13th, and I just thought it would be fun. Like another little signature of mine. Also, a little bit of symbolism. The slushy flavors and the character placements were very purposeful. The pear symbolizes Ima because I see that as her favorite flavor, and the cola flavor is Liakai's. I think he'd be basic with his choices, sorry. And the last one is out of order, and this represents Shoya. I alluded in his character design video that he had some darker themes, and he kind of loses himself through the story, so just a little nod to that. If you analyze enough, he's like almost out of order himself in a way. The lighting was also where I pushed that idea. The light is casting across Liakai's back and over Ima's face. Ima is the narrator, she's the reader's eyes, so the light is directly on her. Liakai turns his head to a lot of things. He can be naive and idealistic, so the light is to his back, like he can't see it because he chooses to not see a lot of things. And I had Shoya completely enveloped in the shadows to tie in his character storyline, a character who is haunted by the past, staying in the dark. It was just something I was thinking about while I was adding in the lighting. As far as redraws go, I think I did a good job making this version look better and more thought out. I think it looks like the same idea, but done better. My style has changed so much and just improved a lot in just a year and a half-ish, and sometimes I even shock myself when I'm drawing and I'm like, oh, I drew that. That's kind of crazy. I once again kept my color palette really muted. It looks a little bit muddy, but I don't know. I liked it, and so I just kept going with it. I'm really comfortable in darker palettes, and I hate when I try to force myself to not use darker palettes because I end up not liking it. So I was just like, stick to what you know, stick to what you like. And I do think my like whole darker color pick choices adds to the like darker themes that my story has. It looks a little eerie. Another reason why I kept most of their facial expressions neutral. Shoya and Ima's would be anyway. They're more serious characters, and Liakai is just, you know, you are who your friends are. It is Gloomville. It is Gloom City in Snowfall Point at this point in the story, so I never try to make them look too happy. Who's excited to read my treacherous, awful, doomed comic? Also, if you're wondering why you couldn't see me sketching Shoya, I was wondering that too, but OBS is kind of like my frenemy and my worst opponent when it comes to making videos. So between that and my editing software just shutting down randomly, that's also something I have to grapple with, which is fun. But with that, the redraw was done. I think it's a far cry from the last two, and I also think that's a good thing. I didn't really like the last two that much. The character designs look better. This is the first time I drew them outside of the redesign video, so that was a fun experience. I actually got to see them in action. I think it looks so much better. I think it just looks more detailed, and I just think that's good. It looks like I'm less scared to draw now, so I didn't give myself any shortcuts like I did in the last couple. Thank you guys so much for watching if you did. Any links I mentioned will be down in the description. Drink water if you haven't through this entire video, and I will see you all next time. Bye!